Hello guys from Plant Reviews, today 13th of May, and I will talk now about scented geraniums or fragrant geraniums, or what they really should be known as scented pelargoniums or fragrant pelargoniums. These plants indeed, even if they are related to the geraniums, they are actually the South African relatives, the pelargoniums. The plants are in the family Geraniaceae, and as I said, these come from South Africa. There's several different varieties and species of pelargoniums that are fragrant. The peculiarity in these plants is that the fragrance doesn't actually come from the flowers, but from the leaves. Basically, the leaves as oil glands that basically release these essential oils fragrant, and basically some of them are so fragrant, so rich in essential oils, that actually they leave this oily secretion under on your hand when you touch them. They come in several different patterns of leaves and color. For example, I have this nutmeg one, quite broadly leafed, and some others come in very undulated foliage, and the color also can vary between bright green or, for example, in this one, like a more grayish green. Flowers are not fragrant, but still are very ornamental, I think. They come in different colors and sizes. In the nutmeg I have there is a very nice small white flower with a pinkish pattern, as you can see, while others are mostly pink with different color pattern on the petals. I would say really that even if they are not fragrant, the flowers are absolutely gorgeous. These plants really have this nice feature that in addition to be fragrant for the foliage, I have actually most of the times very beautiful flowers, like their more famous cousins, South African pelargoniums, that are mostly known for the flowers, because obviously they have much bigger flower heads than these ones. But I think the colors, as you can see, is very bright, and they should be kept in gardens also for the beautiful flowers, not only for the scent. I will talk now a little bit more about an introduction of the this group of plants, and then I will show you my whole the plants I recently purchased in some nurseries, and a little bit of a description of the fragrance. The leaves, in addition to be fragrant, are actually quite thick, and most of the times hairy as well. So actually they are very nice to touch. It's a very peculiar texture, very different from the usual foliage that most plants have. That is just plain smooth and quite, I would say, boring to touch. The flowers, like other pelargoniums, have 5 petals, the two upper ones are usually bigger and can be colored in a different pattern than the lower 3, and this is a feature that you can see in all my pelargoniums indeed. And the patterns on the upper petals can be quite intricate and quite ornamental as well. This, for example, look almost like a pansy for the flower, very peculiar. These plants, unfortunately, they are not very hardy. They are hardy up to zone 10 and 11, so remember to bring them indoors, because in temperate climates like the UK where I live, they don't really stand the winter. 2 years ago I forgot some fragrant pelargoniums in late autumn in the garden. We had a frost, and basically I found all of them dead, including a beautiful strawberry fragrant pelargonium, very nice fragrant, that unfortunately I couldn't find again this year. I hope to be able to find it next year. So remember to bring them indoors in autumn before freezing arrives, and you can put them out again in the spring. Also, these plants bloom in spring and summer, so they are perfect as a patio plant. Ideally planted near passageways, for example, just in front of your door, or in main area where people walk around the garden. In this way, when people touch the leaves with the legs, for example, passing around, or just touching the leaves when they stop by, they will smell the wonderful fragrance. The plant needs to be cultivated in full sun, partial shade at the most, but really these are plants that really enjoy full sun and very well drained soil. Water the pelargonium only when the soil is dry, at least about 2-3 centimeters, 1 inch from the surface, but they can really stand drought quite easily. What they really can't stand is waterlogging conditions and overwatering, so that's a thing that you really have to be careful about. Better a little bit go from in the underwater side than the overwatering side. Another very important feature about this pelargonium is that you don't have to fertilize them often. Ideally just once a month, and with half dose of fertilizer, because this fertilizing the plants can actually decrease the intensity of the fragrance they produce. About the quality of soil, they are adaptable to most kind of soils. I read that they would prefer a slightly acidic compost, about 6.8 pH. However, my geraniums, when I cultivated them 2 years ago in bigger parts of it, transplanted them, were perfectly fine, growing absolutely well in ordinary multi-purpose compost. So I'm sure that these ones will be able to grow very well also in normal compost too. The final size of these pelargoniums varies according to the variety or species. There's both species and varieties, like hybrids, that have been selected for fragrance. What you usually find in shops are plants labeled according really to the scent, rather than the hybrid name or the scientific name. Like for example, this one has leaves that are quite a lot like cola, as you can see. They smell very nicely indeed, really like cola. However, some of these pelargoniums are actually species, so you can, in some online nurseries, you can find them as a species. Like for example, Pelargonium odoratissimus, as the name says, is a very fragrant pelargonium, and it's a species. About the habit of the plant, some of the plants are quite bushy, as you can see this nutmeg one, but some others in time tend to be quite leggy. I can show you this one here as well. You can see already that is shooting upwards and leaving quite bare stems on the lower part. So what you can do is trim them from the top, so in this way you will increase the growth of side shoots and have a bushier plant. Also, these plants really, if they are hybrid, they are usually patented, so you shouldn't really propagate them by cutting. However, many plants of these pelargoniums are species, and you can not only propagate them by cutting, but actually you can propagate them by seeds as well, because and they will come, if they've been pollinated by the same species, they will come up through as species and as scent, as fragrance, while for hybrids obviously you can end up with probably a mix of fragrances that, who knows, might be really pleasant or maybe really awful. That's a nice thing to experiment about breeding sexually the plants, so pollinating different varieties and hybrids really can lead to very unexpected results in the offspring. About the scents, well, there are a lot of different scents. I will now show you some of my some of the plants I selected. So I have this cola that is a very nice, actually, yeah, really like Coke fragrance. I have one that smells like orange, and another one that smells like lemon, even if really their smell is kind of similar with each other, so I would probably relabel them as citrus. It's still a very beautiful fragrance, but however you can see how the flower pattern is different, and the flower size as well, in the orange and in the lemon, even if actually the leaves are pretty similar. One second, I try to focus. Yeah. You see how similar are the leaves in the two plants, but the flowers are completely different. Still beautiful, but yeah, they are quite different in size and pattern. A very nice fragrance, quite different from the others I have. It is this nutmeg pelargonium, nutmeg scented pelargonium. There is also very pretty small white flowers that are born in quite an abundance. I have many buds as well. Then I have this odorata pino that smells really like a pine, like yeah, like if you were going in a forest of pines. I just re-smell it for you. Yeah, definitely. Well, not only smells like pine, but also kind of is an aftertaste of anchovies. Very strange, but yeah, quite a peculiar fragrance. And probably this is the flower I like the most for the beautiful intricate pattern of bright red on this pink pink background with the bright pink stamens as well. Then I have another, well, beautifully flowered pelargonium that is a perfume. It smells quite strong. I re-smell it for you. It smells, this perfume smells basically like citronella, like, well, you know what, like really as a mosquito repellent. It smells precisely like a mosquito repellent. And actually what back in Italy, in my home country, we were doing is actually in summer basically brushing some leaves of scented pelargoniums on our skin, just to try to avoid the mosquitoes biting. And sometimes it was working, some other times not really, but yeah, give it a go if you have mosquito problems in your garden. And finally I have this one, Grandeur Odorata Rose. This one really doesn't smell precisely like a rose, but it is a kind of a more delicate citronella scent, so still quite nice, but definitely not like a rose. One that I didn't buy was a pelargonium scented. It really should have been scented like an apple, but when I smelled it, really smelled chemical, really awful, very pungent. So I am very strong fragrance, so I say not to buy it. One thing about scented pelargoniums or fragrant pelargoniums, there's many fragrant plant. If you can try to buy the plants when you go to a nursery, actually smelling them, because this is the best way to know if you actually like the fragrance or not. Sometimes, like in the apple case, you really don't find much similarity between the fragrance described as apple and the actual fragrance that the pelargonium has. Maybe in general, maybe just for you, because obviously different notes in different people have different sensitivity, and the same smell can actually smell different. The same chemicals can actually smell differently to different people. So maybe other people find the apple scented pelargonium really smelling like an apple, but to me it smelled really like a very strong chemical, so I decided not to buy it. One that I can recommend for you, if you are able to find it in nursery, is the Pelargonium strawberry scented. The scent is incredible, really similar to a strawberry, to my nose. So if you find it in a nursery, go for it and smell it, because if your nose is like mine, this is probably the best scented fragrant pelargonium you can buy. However, all the other fragrant pelargoniums are also nice to have it in the garden, because really they will perfume your garden when you pass nearby and you touch the leaves or brush the legs passing around with a beautiful fragrance. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you would like to support my channel, it would be great if you can please subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye.